This last year, what I found really interesting is that on-chain volumes have gone up and the fees captured by the network have gone up, and spreads and prices for consumers have improved all at the same time. So it's not a zero-sum game where an improvement in one part of the system is at a cost of somebody else. So we actually see the technology get better and faster. That allows developers to build more sophisticated markets, which improve pricing for consumers, and overall, you see more profits in the network itself, but not at the cost to consumers. This is like the cool thing that we see happening with technology improving.
It's 5 years since the launch of Solana. Congratulations. The
5.5.
5.5. Growth has been extraordinary. If we measured it in Scaramucci, someone will make the calculation, but you know, it's long enough where it's really maturing. Tell us about where we're going, Anatoly. What about the next 5 years?
Oh man, I can only think of like 8-week sprints.
All right, so give us the next 8 weeks.
I think the goal for this technology, I think, is ultimately to lower fees and in finance. The way I think of it, it's software eating the world. When you have software that consumes services and things like that, it improves fees for consumers, it improves prices, reduces costs, or improves reliability and safety. So we've seen, I think, immutable ledgers really prove out settlement as a guaranteed thing that you can trust without relying on intermediaries. So it massively improved safety. I think what we've seen with smart contracts is improving transparency of risk. So Aave and protocols like that, you can observe the risk in the system at all times, and you know exactly what's happening, you know, like it's never gonna blow up. And that has reduced risk for consumers. And what Solana has achieved is, with scale, it reduced prices. Solana fees never increase. We have, I think, the lowest median fee out of any other blockchain, simply because we did the work, the hard engineering work, and scaled the throughput and bandwidth of the system. So our goal is to continue to do that, because I think we can do this at a global scale. So like Google is the world's library, Solana could be the world's giant marketplace. And it's a bunch of engineering work to improve performance, reduce latency, all the low-level stuff.
So Kyle, I see you as one of the great proselytizers of Solana, and somebody that...
Number 2 after this.
Hi, okay, number 2. We'll give Raj some credit too. Maybe
number 3.
2 of you guys are tied. But
keep getting demoted over here.
No. I got you number 1 for me, because at the depths of this thing, and Anatoly and I were talking about this backstage, you know, you were super high conviction, and you were in many ways the glue that kept things together. Why such high, unstinting conviction from day one, highs and lows? And talk a little bit about what you call the internet capital markets and some of the essays that you've written.
Yeah, you know, back when I first met Anatoly, this was early 2018, and it was launching a new L1 was hot. Arguably, it's still hot to launch a new L1 8 years later, but it was certainly hot at the time. And so I was pretty annoyed with Ethereum people, because I didn't think they wanted to scale their chain. And 8 years later, turns out they don't want to scale their chain. It's perfect as it is. It was conceived and never needs to change again. And so I started looking around at who are all the people trying to do new things. And a few things stood out to me when I was talking with Anatoly way back then. The most important of which is he was just like, dude, I don't want to invent anything new. I just want to take existing known optimizations in computer science that have been pioneered at other places, and I just want to apply them to a distributed global network of nodes. And I was like, this is refreshing, because all the other people I spoke to were like, I'm going to invent some new breakthrough in consensus algorithms or cryptography or whatever. And I was like, man, this sounds risky. And so totally was just like, I'm going to ship it as fast as I can with as little money as possible and move as quickly as possible and just copy things that I've already done before. And I was like, this sounds reasonable. And so that's why we bet early on Solana. Over the years, as things have evolved, our views have changed. And look, like underwriting a $200 million market cap asset's different than a $20 billion market cap asset, which now it's a $100 billion market cap asset. And so we've got to re-underwrite this thing, every so often as it grows. And today, our underwriting, I published a blog post a few months ago called Internet Capital Markets, and it outlines the thesis for Solana. And the basic thesis of it is like, we're going to have every single asset in the world trading on this one global unified ledger, and the fees that the system can capture, both in the form of transaction fees and in the form of priority fees, I think is going to ultimately support $1 trillion plus market cap. And so Multicoin is still long. I am personally still long Sol, because I think every single day capital markets trade to what, 10, 20, 30 trillion dollars around the world. You've got 250 days a year if it's business days, 365 if we add weekends. I think you can easily get to $1 trillion market cap.
Talk about breakthroughs, Anatoly, as we get to the internet capital markets. What additional add-ons, if any, do we need for Solana to achieve what Kyle's talking about?
I think we need. We joke that if we have to, we will build neutrino communication networks to go through the middle of the earth to cut latency. So I think we don't need breakthroughs. I think we are lucky that we get to build on the shoulders of giants. Every 2 years, there is an advancement in silicon and new chips coming out of TSMC, and this improves the capacity of how much stuff you can do and how fast you can communicate. The fiber optic cables are all the same, but the signal analysis and all of this stuff continuously improves with technology. So we get to really just leverage that and to squeeze as much data through these things at as low latency as possible. It's easy for me to say this. It takes very good engineers to continue iterating and constantly analyzing for performance and improving the system, and do this in an incremental way, like day in, day out, to take advantage of this technology. But the real science and breakthroughs are done at TSMC and like at these, I think, foundational labs, and we get to take advantage of that. For us to continue to do that, I think the number one thing is always demand. If we have users and we have demand, the engineers will get paid and they'll get it done. I think over this last year, what I found really interesting is that on-chain volumes have gone up, and the fees captured by the network have gone up, and spreads and prices for consumers have improved all at the same time. So it's not a zero-sum game where an improvement in one part of the system is at a cost of somebody else. But we actually see the technology get better and faster. That allows developers to build more sophisticated markets, which improve pricing for consumers, and overall, you see more profits in the network itself, but not at the cost to consumers. Like this is like the cool thing that we see happening with technology improving. So this gives me, the energy and the spark to keep building, because ultimately I see this as improving. At the end of the day, we have to make people happy, right? We need to improve, give value to consumers, and I see this happening like at a really, really rapid pace. Just over a year, I think spreads have compressed to be better than centralized exchanges in some cases.
So it dovetails into the next question, Kyle, which is related to institutional adoption. We've got potential treasury companies, real-world assets that are being tokenized, stable coins. Thread all of those for us and explain to us how institutional adoption is going to exponentially grow the Solana network.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the Genius Act just passed, and I think the Clarity Act is going to pass, fingers crossed, here very shortly. And I think the right way to think about the real growth of crypto is not Wall Street showing up, it's actually going to be Silicon Valley showing up. Crypto has been the ugly redheaded stepchild of both Wall Street and Silicon Valley for the last decade. Wall Street's warming up to it real quick, obviously. And look, we'll have tokenized.
Just want to apologize to the ugly redheaded stepchildren in the audience, but go ahead, keep going. David, I'm looking at you, David. I'm looking at you. All right, go ahead, keep going.
And Wall Street's excited. They're going to tokenize a bunch of stuff. They're going to put it on blockchains. That's great. But I think Silicon Valley is going to be the distribution. In the next couple of years, Apple and Google are going to enable stablecoins and a crypto wallet natively in iOS and Android. So kind of sort of overnight, 6, 7, 8 billion people are going to get a crypto wallet in their phone. They don't even have to ask for it. It's just going to be there. there's going to be APIs in the operating systems for every single application. Telegram, WhatsApp, Facebook, you name it, is going to be able to tap into that API.
Is it happening more quickly than you thought, slower than you thought, or as you thought?
I mean, look, if you asked Kyle of 8 years ago, would crypto be like mature 8 years later, I would have said yes. And I would argue crypto is not really mature today, so slower than I would have thought. But I think a huge part of that has just been regulatory, which you could never forecast. Genius happening has changed a lot of things. Even 30 days ago, it was like illegal for anyone in Silicon Valley, like any of the big tech companies, to actually do anything productive with crypto. That is no longer the case as of roughly 30 days ago. And I think once those guys flip the switch, that's when this goes truly, truly, huge.
Anatoly, I want to role play for a second. I want to get into your mind and respond. Think of me as a CTO. I'm coming in. I want to talk about Solana. What are some of the trigger points? One of them could be the Alpenglow upgrade. When you meet with these CTOs, give me the pitch to a CTO about Solana.
I think the most powerful part of the pitch to me is that it's completely permissionless. Like Linux, you have all the source code, you have all the data, and you can participate in any part of the stack. And you can actually influence where the stack goes. So things like the Alpenglow upgrade, we got to invent and duct tape together a system that we're trying to make as fast as possible 5 years ago. And now we got to hire the best consensus researchers in the world to build a bleeding edge, like foundational consensus algorithm that I think is the best in the world, from what I can tell. You can influence that as a CTO running your company, what direction the network goes, and what we prioritize, because it is a totally open source collaborative project. I think, I grew up kind of in the late 90s, and I was an open source geek, and I remember coding over the weekend, because what inspired me that a bunch of people that could just build open source software could compete with Microsoft, the biggest company in the world. And they were the enemy. They were like evil Microsoft with $ for S's. And a bunch of open source geeks won, because that technology is free for anybody to take and use for whatever means they want. And this is the coolest thing about this part of finance. It's not being revolutionized by closed source systems or opaque systems. It's actually all transparent and effectively in the public domain.
Full disclosure, I'm a multi-coin investor for many years. And
Thank you for sticking with us.
You got it. Listen, and that's the question. So one of the things I was impressed with you, Kyle, is you sticking with it, but also, and this is a real credit to Anatoly, the system itself, we saw tremendous stress in terms of price volatility, but the system hung in there, continued to gain TVL. So talk about a little bit of your psychology going through that and the sturdiness. I think ultimately the outcome of all that, I think all three of us, frankly, is the sturdiness of the network and the developer base, the fan base of the network, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's kept our conviction in Solana for all these years has been that the thesis is not invalidated. The system has gotten better, cheaper, faster, consistently every year since the network launched. And whenever there's been a hard time, and some people got scared and left, and a lot of people would, spread FUD and such, where we looked at first principles. We said, well, is the blockchain faster than it was 2 or 3 months ago? And the answer has always been yes. And is it still making blocks? Still making blocks. And we also looked at, obviously, the competition, and we're like, hey, is the competition catching up? And we were like, not really. Ethereum is 50% faster today than it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I mean, it's like, in software terms, that's nothing. 2 or 3 days ago on Solana did 100,000 transactions per second on mainnet. And that was like a test, but like it was actually on a globally distributed mainnet environment for the first time ever. And so, they keep pushing the frontier. And if you're going to have a global financial system, we're going to need millions of TPS. And we have the network effects, we have the liquidity, we have the users, and the performance continues to gain. So thesis is not invalidated, job's not finished.
Solana Seeker, Anatoly. This is your new phone coming out now. And thank you for sending me one, by the way. I had to convince my wife that it wasn't my burner phone. Every 15 seconds, I said, no, Anatoly sent it to me. She likes you, by the way, so I was off the hook. But anyway, talk a little bit about the vision of it.
I had the pleasure of working at Qualcomm like during the aughts when the cell phone revolution was happening. I was one of the first kernel engineers on Brew, this platform that we built for developers to build mobile applications. And I remember getting 2 million downloads on this bowling app as kind of this big milestone. And that was 6 months before the iPhone came out and completely changed the entire mobile landscape. And what I found kind of the original vision for building a programmable computer that you hold in your hand was as open as the internet. That was really the goal. We wanted every developer to have the opportunity to build applications and reach billions of people and be able to use those applications like on the go everywhere that you go. We kind of got there, but there's this kind of massive moderation, industry on both Apple and Google, which also take a 20 and 30% rake on developers. So it seems kind of crazy to me that when we talk about crypto disrupting traditional finance that has like 50 basis point fees, we can't conceive of crypto disrupting Apple or Google that has 2,000 to 3,000 basis point fees, right? That's like a massive rake that they have on all software that's distributed globally. So that was really the opportunity, I think, to me, was to build a mobile platform that can be open, that can be transparent, that can have fee structures that are more, I think every developer would agree that the way crypto fees work, priority fees and all those things, is a much better structure than the way Apple and Google basically take this massive cut. So a fee structure that's much more fair. The challenge is, of course, when building like a whole new platform is you don't have users. If you don't have users, you don't have developers, and bootstrapping this process. We got to do it once with Solana. We had to get developers and get users for those developers, and we're trying to do this now with Seeker as well. It's exciting and fun, a lot of challenges ahead, but we had 150,000 phones pre-ordered in basically in a span of 48 hours or so. We finally shipped those phones. The reviews are great. The users are excited. So go buy a Solana mobile phone and help us disrupt the duopoly.
So amen to that. So Kyle, you mentioned the Kyle of 8 years ago and where you are today. Let's talk about the Kyle 8 years from now and lay out for us the, fuse Anatoly's vision with your own vision of Solana and tell us where Solana is.
I think 8 years from now, DTCC is on it's probably not dead, but it's probably on its last legs, trying to legislate and regulate its way to keep relevancy. I think NYSE, NASDAQ, and CME have some part of their systems running on Solana. And then I think we have a bunch of new exchanges like Kalshi and others also probably running on Solana that are like rivaling NYSE and NASDAQ. I think we probably have some meaningful percentage of equities trading on Solana. And like if you're a guy in Brazil or Colombia or the Philippines or Japan holding US equities, it's probably much more likely that asset is being represented as an equity on Solana rather than as an equity in the DTCC. Yeah, I think that's probably where we are in 8 years.
So the QSIP number is going away.
Which number?
The QSIP number that you define your security. Okay, so the QSIP number is what you use to find your security at the DTC.
It's called the contract address, Anthony.
Okay, all right, so that's where we're going.
Yeah.
All right, I'm trying to flesh this out for everybody.
CA.
There's still some TradeFi people in this room, okay?
I learned,
myself included. So
I learned yesterday
what
what a registration statement was. And I described it to my team as, quote, carrier pigeons for TradFi.
And Anatoly, you're an engineer. Don't pay attention to this part of the conversation. Okay, let's go back to Anatoly for a second. You know, Anatoly, when you started, did you think we would be where we are today? And congratulations, by the way, on your wonderful success and this amazing achievement. Did you think that?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I obviously couldn't predict the success at all. You know, I think this is kind of I think part of the hardest part being a founder is that I think your experience is that you're always about to die. Like,
Yeah.
you get like a couple days where
I've had 9 of those
Yeah.
experiences. I've already.
you raise
More
money,
than a
you
cat.
celebrate, you know, holy, you know, like, oh my God, we just have real checks, real money hitting the bank, and we can pay salaries. And then the next day, we have 1 day less of runway, and we haven't shipped anything. And you're always stressed out trying to get to the next milestone. That's been, yeah, that's kind of like the founder experience. You never really think about, when you do hit that success, you get to experience it for a very short amount of time. So when I look back and kind of think of all the ups and downs and everything we went through, I can't believe we're here, honestly. Like, it's mind-blowing. What I think about now is the next 8 weeks. When is the Alpenglow going to be in testnet? When do we get the state compression stuff up and running and things like that? So I go through Slack and I ping every engineer. Are you blocked? What's the ETA? I think to me, like that part of it is fun, right? Because they get to see the progress. The engineers are excited. They get to see the impact that they make with every release, with every time they push code. So yeah, I don't know. Hope that covers it.
Yeah, that definitely does. What about you? Same sort of question.
What's the question?
Yeah, just to repeat the question, is about being a founder, going through the ups and downs. Did you think you'd be where you are today?
No, so yeah, for context, so I did a startup before Multicoin. It's called Pristine. We built software for Google Glass for surgeons, which was going really well until Google killed Google Glass, at which point I didn't really have a functioning business. So that was pretty rough. I got the rug pulled out from under me, learned what that was all about. That also ended up attracting me to crypto. When I learned, I was like, oh, you can't pull the rug out from under people. So that was a formative experience for me. I thought when we launched Multicoin, I was like, yeah, if we ever make it to like 50 million or 100 million in AUM, like we've made it. It's been pretty wild. I think
What's your AUM now?
3 billion or so.
Yep.
I was talking with every day now I talk with our general counsel, Greg, who's here somewhere, about language in the Clarity Act and how we're navigating, Congress. And even we hired Greg in 2021. I remember in the interview process vividly. I was like, Greg was like, I want to do policy stuff. And I was like, Greg, it doesn't matter. We will have no influence whatsoever. If you want to do stuff, fine, I don't care. But just like eyes wide open, you will not have any impact. And like now, I spend a lot of my time and energy on this, and I actually believe I have an impact. So I think that's been like the wildest thing that like I've really undone a bunch of preconceived notions.
Any surprises still related to the blockchain, Anatoly? What surprises you today?
I think the Genius Act passing was really surprising. It's awesome. I think when you look at the next 5 years, I think it's not unlikely that we'll see, trillions of dollars worth of stable coins issued, which is mind-boggling. Like it's really, really kind of crazy to think about. And if you think of it as, you look at who holds treasury bills, it's these nation states, Japan, China, etc. In 5 years, the largest holder of stable coins is going to be the internet. It is kind of its own super state, which is, I think, a very transformative thing happening to us.
The singularity is near.
Yeah, yep.
Surprises, we got about 30 seconds, Kyle. Any surprises in addition to those?
Oh, surprises. Why don't you give us a surprise for you, Scaramucci?
What's that?
Why don't you tell us something that surprised you?
Oh, I'm surprised in it about
surprised as many people showed up to your conference.
No, I'm surprised in about 2 minutes I'm going to be interviewing Eric Trump. How about those apples? All right, let's go, guys.